Welcome back to Ben's Book Club. Today we are diving into the book, Let It Be Tough. Train your mind to perform under pressure. Okay, let's jump right into this incredible explainer, because this material is going to radically shift how we look at fear, uncertainty, and resilience.
70.3. I want you to imagine, just for a second, diving exactly 70.3 meters deep. But we're not talking about a warm tropical ocean here. No, you are completely submerged under solid, heavy Arctic ice. The sensory deprivation is absolute. The sheer physical weight of the ice above you is terrifying, and you are entirely cut off from the world above.
And the stakes in that environment? They are completely visceral. 0.2 degrees Celsius. That is the temperature of the water wrapping around you in near total darkness. In this freezing, totally hostile environment, there is absolutely zero margin for error. The slightest hesitation or sudden panic doesn't just mean a failed athletic attempt, it literally equals instant death, because your body's immediate screaming urge is to freak out and fight the reality of that freezing dark.
But here is the most mind-bending constraint of the whole thing. 1. All of this, including a world record-breaking 182-meter distance swim under that ice, was done on a single, solitary breath. Seriously, this wasn't just some reckless stunt. It was a highly deliberate, calculated test of human psychology under extreme duress. In fact, this feat was so visually and mentally stunning that it was actually captured in Apple's adventure series on Apple Vision Pro for immersive VR.
Training mental toughness, the mindset shift.
So you're probably wondering, who deliberately subjects themselves to that kind of absolute nightmare? Well, it's the author of our book, Ant Williams. You see, for roughly 2 decades, Williams was a highly successful performance psychologist. He coached elite MotoGP riders who were taking corners at completely blistering speeds. He trained big-wave surfers staring down literal mountains of water. But despite mentoring all these extreme sport athletes, he started feeling like a bit of a fraud. Why? Because he was constantly talking about fear from the safety of the sidelines. So he decided he needed to test his own sports psychology advice in a truly terrifying environment. He became a freediver, taking up a sport he had absolutely no natural background in, specifically to face his own terror head-on.
Which brings us to the core thesis of his work. Mental toughness is a trainable skill built through repeated exposure to challenge, self-regulation, and deliberate action, rather than an innate genetic trait. So, the absolute crucial point here is that toughness isn't something you are just born with. You don't inherit grit. It's a muscle. It is a specific skill that you actively and deliberately train by stepping into the hard moments, not by running away from them.
For this to work, we all need to make a massive mindset shift. On one side, we have what's called the comfort trap. Our culture today is completely obsessed with optimization, avoiding discomfort, and just wishing things were easier. But trying to make everything easy actually makes us fragile. Instead, we need the toughness mindset. Instead of complaining when things get difficult, Williams argues we have to accept the hard moment. We need to lean into the discomfort and literally say out loud, "Let it be tough." True resilience begins the exact moment you stop fighting the reality of a stressful situation.
Surviving the panic, the 3-step framework.
Now that we understand the mindset shift, we need the actual practical tactics that kept Williams alive under the ice. So, what actually happens to your brain when panic hits? Think about it. I want you to recall your own physical responses to absolute panic for a second. Maybe it was a high-stakes presentation or a sudden crisis at home. Your heart rate spikes, right? Your vision narrows. The brain immediately defaults to a primal fight or flight response, and that biological response completely destroys your logical clarity. Out there in freediving, panic burns oxygen rapidly, which means panic equals death.
To combat this automatic response, Williams developed this core 3-step framework. Step 1, recognize. Step 2, pause. Step 3, move forward. It all starts by acknowledging the high-pressure environment without any judgment. You stop the endless denial and frustration cycle by just admitting to yourself, okay, I am in a hard moment right now. Then you purposefully pause. And finally, you move forward by taking clear, deliberate action.
That middle step, it's often the hardest one to execute. You must pause with purpose to break the panic loop. When your lungs are screaming for air under solid ice, trying to force yourself to just be calm is the absolute wrong move. It doesn't work. Instead, an intentional, deliberate pause actually regulates the nervous system. It hits the mental brakes, slows your heart rate down, and restores logical thinking right when every single instinct in your body is screaming at you to thrash and flee.
Action over certainty, the confidence myth.
This brings us to the single biggest mistake people make when facing high pressure: waiting for certainty.
People freeze because they are waiting for 100% certainty, or they are waiting for the fear to completely vanish before they do anything. But fear is normal. What is actually required for high performance is decisive action. You have to execute a bold, clear move while you are still feeling the fear. You simply cannot wait for the perfect, comfortable moment, because in high-pressure situations, that moment is never going to arrive.
The ultimate truth of performance psychology is this: action creates confidence. Confidence does not create action. We have it completely backwards. Confidence isn't some magical feeling that just descends upon you from the sky, allowing you to finally act. No, confidence is evidence. It is built by gathering physical proof of your own ability to act under extreme discomfort. You don't wait to feel ready. You take action, and the confidence follows.
Mastering everyday pressure, from the Arctic to the boardroom.
Now, this is the book's absolute Trojan horse payoff. Williams used extreme sports as a gripping proof of concept to connect life-or-death survival tools directly to our everyday lives. So the question we really have to ask ourselves is, if these tools work under solid ice, how can we apply them to daily stress? Think about it. If this exact psychological framework can keep a diver from panicking in 0.2-degree water on a single breath, it translates incredibly well to a panic-inducing work presentation, a surprise deadline, or even a really difficult conversation with a loved one. The biology of our panic response is remarkably similar across the board.
Let's watch how this plays out in a perfectly mundane professional scenario. Say it's 10 a.m., and a surprise public speaking request triggers sheer panic. At 10:01 a.m., instead of fighting it, you recognize the hard moment without complaining. You just say, "Let it be tough." At 10:02 a.m., you pause with purpose to consciously regulate your nervous system and lower that heart rate. By 10:05 a.m., you act decisively, stepping up to the podium despite the lingering fear in your stomach. The recognize, pause, act loop flawlessly translates from the Arctic depths straight to the corporate office.
When you practice this framework, the practical outcomes are totally life-changing. You build lasting mental resilience. You learn to stay calm and focused under pressure. You develop deep confidence in uncertain situations by gathering evidence of your decisive actions. You overcome paralyzing fear and self-doubt. And most importantly, you make clear decisions when the stakes are high. Pressure is universal in our lives, but as this material proves, it's completely manageable.
I want to leave you with this final, incredibly provocative thought from the author. Pressure is not the enemy, it is the training ground. Stop trying to escape the difficult, uncertain moments in your life. Instead, treat them as the exact tools you need to build the absolute strongest version of yourself. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode.